I didn't start recording. We're going to be dealing with linear equations, okay? Straight lines. The way you can tell linear versus nonlinear. Okay, so linear versus nonlinear. I just meant don't try and draw those pictures. Oh. Now you may take notes. This is where the notes would start. So a linear equation might look something like this: y equals 2x, or it might be y equals 3x plus 7, okay? If you were to graph those, you would get a straight line, okay? Whereas it would be nonlinear if we did something like this: y equals x squared, or y equals the absolute value of x plus 3, okay? So you're going to see a lot of these types of equations in the next couple sections here. We're going to be dealing with linear equations. They're forming straight lines, okay? So the first thing that we're going to talk about is called a Y-intercept. Okay, and when we talk y-intercept in our equation eventually, it's always going to be a b that represents the y-intercept. So I'm going to give you a graph here. Okay, on this graph, what is my x-axis? What's my x-axis? The horizontal, right? So here's my x-axis, and this is my y-axis, okay? A y-intercept is a point that hits your y-axis, okay? So if I have a line like this, for instance, okay, so here's my line. My y-intercept is the point, you girls with me? The point where we hit the y-axis. So if you look here, my y-intercept would be right here. So my y-intercept is 3. Okay, as a point, we would call that 0, 3 would be my y-intercept. Someone's trying to share graph paper with me. Interesting. What would your y-intercept be for this one? Okay, if this is my line, what's my y-intercept right now? -4, right? The point where it hits the y-axis right here is -4. So my b, my y-intercept, is -4, okay? So whenever it talks about a y-intercept or whenever it talks about a b, that's what you're finding. Where does it hit the y-axis, okay? Everyone with me on that? Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to be putting things into what's called slope-intercept form. And this is probably the most common form of an equation, of a line. And it always looks pretty much the same. There might be slight variations, but slope-intercept form looks like this: y equals mx plus b. Okay, what did we say b was? The y-intercept. So every single time in our equation, this is going to be the y-intercept. Okay, anyone know what the m is? It's the slope, okay? M will always be the slope. And something to note, your m is always what is being multiplied by your x. Okay, so the slope is always going to be the coefficient, right? The number that comes before your x. So y equals mx plus b. That means the x and the y are just any point on the graph. So your x value and your y value for a point, okay? So you're going to do a lot of replacing these two and leaving the x and the y in there as x and y. Okay, so let's say I give you this. Example 1 says, what are the slope and y-intercept of the graph of, and it says of the graph of y equals 5x minus 2. You don't need to graph it, okay? They're just saying if you were to graph it, what would the slope be and what would the y-intercept be? So if I have y equals 5x minus 2, what is my m going to be? 5, right? That's my slope. Now, when we talk slope, we said it's rise over run. So if I think of it as a fraction, what is 5?
The y-intercept.
The what?
The numerator.
5's the numerator. What would the denominator be? 5 over, what would make it 5 still? A 1, right? 5 over 1 is 5, okay? So the slope is 5, or 5 over 1. You don't have to write it as 5 over 1. It's just if you're going to move it for 5, you have to go up 5 over 1. That's how you would do a slope of 5, okay? What would your y-intercept be? Okay, now here's where you have to be a little bit careful. This number is our y-intercept, but remember what the formula looked like? It was y equals mx plus b, right? So you're adding a negative 2, so your b is negative 2, okay? Even though it's minus 2, it's like you're adding a negative 2, okay? So y equals mx plus b. All right, so what would it be for this? If I give you the equation, this is your answer. So this is slope, this is y-intercept, okay? What if I gave you the equation y equals negative 1/2 x plus 4? What is your slope?
So the slope is negative 1/2. And then
Slope is negative 1/2.
Y-intercept is 4.
And your y-intercept would be 4. Okay? What if your equation was y equals negative 3x?
So the b will be y. And then, wait.
What's m?
M is negative 3.
Negative 3. What's b?
X.
No.
It's
No, it is existent. It's 0, right? Here's the thing. The formula says y equals mx plus b. Well, what am I adding to this? 0, right? So your y-intercept is 0 for that. Okay? So don't just assume that because there is no b term there, that there is no y-intercept. The y-intercept is 0. Okay? Okay. Let's switch it around now. I'm going to give you a slope and a y-intercept, and you're going to write me an equation. Stop dancing, Jada. I'm glad you are, but you're distracting right now. No, just wait. In a little bit, you may. Okay, so if you have a slope of negative 4/5 and a y-intercept of 7, and I say write the equation in slope-intercept form, what's that going to look like?
y equals negative 4/5 x plus 7.
Right. So the x always goes behind your slope, okay? So negative 4/5 x, and then my y-intercept is positive, so it's going to be plus 7. What if my slope was negative 2/3 and my y-intercept was negative 4? What would my equation be?
It'll be y equals negative 2x plus minus negative 4. Wait. Let me rephrase that.
What's your m? Negative 2/3, right? So y equals m times x plus b. What's that going to be?
Plus negative 4?
Okay, so it's plus a negative 4
Wait, why is it plus 9?
because the y-intercept form is this, right? mx plus b. okay? So we're adding a -4. But here's the thing, guys. If it's a -4, the simpler way to write that is y equals -2/3 x minus 4. So technically, these are both correct.
Are these two separate problems? She's trying to explain to us.
I'm just showing you these are two separate problems. So this is one, this is one, but these two are the same answer. Okay? That's up to you. If you see it easier where you can just write -4, then write -4. If it works better for you to always think of it as plus a negative, then write the plus a negative. That's fine. I prefer the -4.
Wait, so we could.
Because here's the thing, guys. If you have a plus and a minus right next to each other, a lot of times people get it confused. Like, what's going on here? Whereas if you just say -4, that's pretty straightforward. Right?
When I do just the minus,
You're confused?
yeah, like how did I'm confused. Like the -4 related suddenly jumped down to the
That's two different problems. I showed you, here's your slope and y-intercept. You would plug it in and it would look like this. Here's your slope and y-intercept. You plug it in and it looks like this. Yeah. Well, you're busy chatting, so you're lost. That's what we're doing. Okay, we're moving on. Try to stick with me, huh, people?
You're gonna want to stick with her because this. No, because it's difficult. I wasn't paying attention.
I tried to warn you guys. You just didn't heed my warning.
I'm pressing. Alright. I'm
I
gonna
don't-
tell you guys just listen. Even I don't know this. I make up
Okay, let's say I give you this. A point at 0, 0. A point at 1, -3. And that's going to be our line. Okay, the problem says this. Write the equation for this graph. So you have a graph here. We're going to write an equation for what you see. What two things do we have to pull out of this
You
picture?
have to pull out the slope and the y-intercept.
Right. So we need our slope and we need our y-intercept. What is the slope right now?
The slope is 0. Wait, no. The
Yeah.
b is 0. And then
It's 1/3.
I'm trying to see.
The
because-
b is 0, right? This is our y-intercept. Where we hit the y-axis is 0. So b is 0. You need to figure out your slope. And this is what we did in yesterday's lesson, or in Tuesday's lesson, right? Finding the slope is rise over run. So you start at the point on the left,
And then you go down.
and you go 1, 2, 3
And
down,
then go up for 1.
okay?
I get it.
And you go over 1. What?
Is slope this or that?
Slope is this.
Slope is any of it. Slope is the tilt of the line. They all have a slope.
Wait, what's rise and what's run?
Rise is up and down. Run is left and right. Okay, so listen. Shh. -3 over 1 is what number? Julia, sit right here. Right here. Slope is -3, right? That's an easier way to write -3 over 1. So don't put it in as -3 over 1. That's just going to be more work than it's worth. You're going to write the equation of the line. What would this be with a slope of -3 and a y-intercept of 0?
So it'll equal y equals -3x for 1.
-3x plus what? Plus 0. So now here's the thing. If you're adding 0 to something, do we need to tell people we're adding 0 to it? No. So your equation would be this. Okay? That would be the equation of the line. Yeah.
So where did the 1 go? The 1 under.
Because we went down 3. Oops, not negative. And over 1, right? So -3 over 1. But -3 over 1 is -3. right? Negative 3 divided by 1 is negative 3.
Okay.
Okay. On that same graph, in green now, because I don't feel like, actually here, we'll just erase. Okay, new graph. Let's say we have a point at 0, negative 2, and a point at 1, 0. And our line is, whoops, ignore that line. Okay, so our line looks like this.
So B is what?
So you need your y-intercept and your slope. So M and B. Remember, M is slope, B is the y-intercept. Okay?
So N equals negative 2.
No. Carrie-Anna, what did you say?
N equals 2 over 1.
Right. Okay, so remember this. When you're finding the slope, it's rise over run. Rise means up or down. So you always start at the point on the left. Okay, this is the point on the left of my 2 points. So I need to go rise and run. Okay, that means I'm going up 2 to the right 1. So my slope is 2 over 1, which is just 2. Okay, that is a slope of 2. My y-intercept is what?
1.
My y-intercept. Remember, this is my y-axis right here.
Oh, okay.
Where do I?
1.
Negative 2, right? We are hitting that y-axis at negative 2. Here's 0, negative 1, negative 2. So my y-intercept is negative 2, and then you're going to take those two values and you're going to plug it into slope-intercept form. So you're going to say y equals 2 times x plus a negative or just minus 2. Okay, now you could have written it this way, y equals 2x plus a negative 2. That's hairy. It doesn't look great. Okay, so if I were you, I would do it this way. But you can technically do either. Okay, questions on that?
No.
No, I'm gonna do.
One more.
I have one more example, different type of question.
Yeah.
Do we have homework tonight?
Yes.
Okay, does this make sense? We did 10 pages in Miss Santa class, and then after that, she's like, "Oh, we're done," and then she says, "We have homework," and then she
We
said,
have a whole project.
and then we have a whole project,
the project?
and you have to do a little keynote on our.
Oh, wait, what's the last?
I don't know. Hey, we're not getting off track. Talk about that later. Okay, here's a question where it says find the slope and y-intercept. Now, here's the deal. Shh. You don't have them right now. Okay, you cannot look at this and be like, oh, it's negative 4 and 6. Doesn't work like that. Do you see the issue?
It's because 6x is supposed to be where the 4 is.
Where the y is.
It's supposed to be y equals 6x
Right.
minus 4.
So your equation has to be in slope-intercept form, y equals something. Okay? That means that y has to be by itself. So we have to add 4 to both sides. So this is gone. And you get this, okay? I will do another one, just wait. So if this is your setup, now you can answer the question, what is the slope, what is the y-intercept? What's my slope right now?
6x.
No. Your slope is just the number in front of the x. So your slope is 6. What's your y-intercept?
4.
A positive 4. Okay, another one. I'm going to do another one. What is slope?
Can we do it by
Okay, shh. People. Shh. Quit. Eliza, what did you ask me? What is slope? Slope is like your rise and your run. So like if I'm looking at a grid and I'm here and I went up 2 over 1, my slope is 2 over 1. It's how I got from one point to another on the graph. Okay? Okay, here's another one.
Can we do it by ourselves?
Why would we do that?
Because we need to not do it by ourselves.
Okay, if my equation looks like this and I ask you for slope and y-intercept, you always have to put it into slope-intercept form first. Slope-intercept form is always y equals something. You have to isolate the y, okay? How do I isolate y right now? You're going to take away the 2/3 x from both sides. Okay? So this is gone. You're left with, now here's the deal. Technically, 2 minus 2/3 x is not wrong, but it's going to look different. So what I always do is I keep the negative 2/3 x at the beginning. And then is it plus or minus 2? Plus, because this is a positive 2. Okay? So if this is my setup, what's my slope? Negative 2/3. What's my y-intercept? 2. Okay? Questions on that?